I thought losing my father was the worst pain of my life, until my own mother chose another family and erased me. My name is Emily, and I am 32 years old. But the story I am about to tell began long before I ever understood what betrayal felt like. For most of my childhood, my world was simple. It was just my mom, my dad, and me. We weren't rich. We weren't perfect. But we were together. I grew up believing that family meant safety. That no matter how hard life became, my parents would always stand on my side. I trusted that idea blindly. Then my dad died. One moment, he was there, his voice filling the house, his shoes by the door, his laughter echoing in the hallway. And the next moment, he was gone. Just like that. The silence he left behind was so loud it felt like it pressed against my chest every morning when I woke up. After the funeral, my mom and I clung to each other. Or at least, that's what I believed. I told myself we were healing together. I told myself our bond had grown stronger because of the loss. I didn't realize I was the only one holding on. About a year later, my mom started changing. She smiled more, but not at me. She stayed out late. She guarded her phone like it was a secret I wasn't allowed to touch. When I asked questions, she brushed them off and said she deserved happiness too. I agreed. I really did. When she finally told me she was seeing someone, I forced myself to be supportive. I told her I was happy for her. I told her she deserved love again. Inside, though, I felt like I was slowly being pushed out of my own life. The first time I met her new family was at a dinner she insisted was important. I remember standing in front of the mirror that night, trying to choose an outfit that wouldn't make me look invisible. I didn't want to be a problem. I didn't want to embarrass her. I just wanted to belong. The moment I walked into that house, I knew I didn't. Everyone hugged each other like it was natural. Like they had been practicing for years. Conversations flowed around me, not to me. Laughter filled the room, but none of it included my name. I sat there quietly, smiling when I was supposed to, nodding when it felt appropriate. My chest felt tight, but I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself it was just new and awkward. Then I caught my mom's eyes across the table. She didn't look at me the way she used to. There was no warmth. No silent understanding. Just distance. Later that night, after everyone left, she pulled me aside. Her voice was calm. Too calm. She told me I needed to understand something. She said, "Emily, things are different now. You're grown. I have a new responsibility." I asked her what that meant for me. She sighed and said, "You can't always come first." That was the moment something inside me cracked. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just nodded and went to my room. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house breathe around me, and I felt something I had never felt before in my life. I felt replaceable. That night, I realized love could change without warning. And the person I trusted most in the world was slowly letting go of me. The worst part wasn't the pain. The worst part was how quiet it all was. Nothing exploded. Nobody screamed. There was no single moment I could point to and say, "This is where everything broke." Instead, my place in my own home began to fade, little by little, like a photograph left in the sun too long. After that dinner, things changed in ways that were easy to deny but impossible to ignore. My mom stopped asking about my day. When I spoke, her eyes drifted to her phone. When I sat in the living room, I felt like a guest who had overstayed their welcome. Conversations lowered when I entered the room, then picked up again when I left. I told myself I was being sensitive. Grief does that to you, I thought. Loss makes you imagine things. So I stayed quiet. I didn't want to cause trouble. I didn't want to be another burden in a house that already felt crowded. My room was the first thing that stopped feeling like mine. One afternoon, my mom stood in the doorway and said, "We might need this space later. Just temporarily." Temporary sounded harmless. Reasonable. I nodded. Soon, boxes started appearing. Old things were moved. My posters came down. My shelves were cleared to make room for someone else's plans. It felt like my childhood was being packed away without my permission. Family dinners became rare for me. Sometimes I was told they were eating out. Other times, they had already finished by the time I came home. I would open the fridge and find leftovers labeled with names that weren't mine. When my birthday came, I didn't expect much. I just wanted acknowledgement. A cake. A happy birthday, at the very least. That day passed like any other. No candle. No card. No hug. That night, my mom told me we'd celebrate another time. I smiled and said it was fine. I went to my room and cried into my pillow so quietly that even I could barely hear myself. The moment that hurt the most came by accident. I was walking down the hallway late one night, half asleep, when I heard my mom's voice from the kitchen. She was talking to her new husband. I wasn't trying to listen, but my name stopped me in my tracks. She said, "Emily needs to learn to stand on her own. I can't keep holding on to the past." The past. I stood there frozen, my heart pounding so loud I was afraid they would hear it. In that sentence, I wasn't her daughter. I wasn't her responsibility. I was a chapter she wanted to close. After that, the rules changed. She asked me to start paying rent. She said it would help me grow up. I agreed, even though I was already working long hours and barely saving anything. I watched her spend freely on her new family while counting every dollar I had. I paid for my own groceries. I bought my own necessities. I made myself smaller so I wouldn't take up too much space. I thought if I proved I was responsible, independent, easy to live with, she would see me again. I thought she would remember who I was. But the more I tried, the more invisible I became. By the end of that year, I understood the truth I had been avoiding. I wasn't being pushed away. I was being erased. I always believed betrayal would be loud. I imagined shouting, slammed doors, maybe a final argument that would explain everything. Instead, it arrived quietly, on a normal Tuesday that looked exactly like every other day of my life. I came home early from work because my shift had been cut. I remember feeling relieved. I thought maybe I could rest. Maybe I could finally breathe in a house that no longer felt like home. When I opened the front door, the first thing I saw was my suitcase. Then I saw another one. They were standing neatly by the door, zipped up, like they were waiting for me. For a moment, my brain refused to understand what my eyes were seeing. I stood there, still holding my keys, listening to the silence. The house felt empty, but not abandoned. It felt prepared. My mom walked in from the kitchen. She didn't look surprised. She didn't ask why I was home early. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just said my name. That was when my hands started shaking. She asked me to sit down, but she stayed standing. That alone told me everything. This wasn't a conversation. It was a decision that had already been made. She said, "This situation isn't working anymore." I waited for the rest. I waited for some kind of explanation that would make it hurt less. She said her new family needed space. She said there was too much tension. She said everyone would be happier if I moved out. No warning. No discussion. No chance to prepare. I asked her how long she had been planning this. She didn't answer. I asked her where she expected me to go. She paused, then said, "You'll figure it out. You always do." That sentence cut deeper than anything else she said. I wasn't her daughter anymore. I was a problem she trusted would remove itself. I looked around the room, trying to find some sign of hesitation on her face. I wanted to see guilt. Fear. Love. Anything. I saw none of it. I asked her one last question. My voice was quiet, almost calm. Do you even care what happens to me? She didn't respond. The silence stretched so long it felt heavy. That silence answered everything. I went to my room and packed what I could. I folded my clothes slowly, like if I moved carefully enough, time would stop. I picked up old photos of my dad and me, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped them. I held onto them like proof that I had once belonged somewhere. Each item I packed felt like I was erasing myself from that house. When I came back to the front door, my mom was still standing there. She didn't help. She didn't say goodbye. I wanted her to stop me. I wanted her to change her mind at the last second and say she had made a mistake. She didn't. I walked out with my suitcases and closed the door behind me. The sound of that door shutting echoed in my chest. I stood on the porch for a moment, staring at a house that had been my entire world. Then I realized something terrifying. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I felt empty. That was the moment I understood the truth. I hadn't just been asked to leave a house. I had been cut out of my own family. And nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't cry that night. People think getting thrown out would break you instantly, but for me, it did something worse. It shut everything down. My emotions went quiet, like someone had turned a switch off inside my chest. I dragged my suitcases down the street and didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't turn back. I slept on a friend's couch the first week. Then another. Then another. Every time I thanked them, I smiled like everything was fine. I didn't tell anyone the full truth. Saying it out loud made it feel too real, like admitting I had been abandoned by my own mother would make it permanent. So I stayed silent. I stopped calling people. I stopped posting online. I changed my phone number and didn't give it to anyone connected to my old life. It wasn't dramatic. It was deliberate. If my mom had erased me so easily, I would finish the job myself. I wanted to disappear before she could change her mind and hurt me again. Life became small and hard. I worked extra shifts. I took jobs I hated. I ate cheap food and skipped meals without telling anyone. At night, I lay awake replaying moments from my childhood, searching for the exact point where I stopped being enough. I blamed myself more than I should have. I told myself I was too quiet. Too needy. Too much of the past she wanted to forget. Those thoughts followed me everywhere, like shadows that never left. But something strange happened over time. The pain didn't vanish, but it changed shape. Every rejection hardened me. Every lonely night taught me how to survive without comfort. I learned how to rely on myself because there was no one else left to rely on. I saved money slowly. Painfully. Dollar by dollar. I stopped buying things I didn't need. I stopped dreaming about what could have been and focused on what was directly in front of me. Survival became my only goal. Months turned into years. One day, I realized I hadn't thought about my mom in weeks. That scared me at first. Then it felt like relief. I moved into a tiny place of my own. It wasn't much, but it was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could decide I no longer belonged there. That door only opened for me. I started a small business on the side. It grew slowly, just like I had. I worked late nights, fueled by exhaustion and something deeper. Every success felt like a quiet rebellion. Every step forward felt like proof that I wasn't disposable. I became stronger than the girl who had stood on that porch with suitcases in her hands. Then, one afternoon, my past found me. An email appeared in my inbox. I recognized the name immediately. My heart started pounding before I even opened it. It was from my mom. She wrote about regret. About missing me. About how things hadn't worked out with her new family. She said she wanted to talk. She said she wanted to fix things. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me wanted to cry. And part of me felt nothing at all. That's when I understood how far I had come. She had erased me when I was weak. Now I existed without her. And this time, disappearing had made me powerful. I didn't reply to my mom's email right away. I read it over and over, not because I needed to understand the words, but because I wanted to understand my reaction. Years ago, a message like that would have shattered me. I would have run back, desperate to be chosen again. But this time, my hands were steady. I finally replied with a single sentence. I can meet you. Not because I needed closure. Not because I missed her. Because I wanted the truth to stand in the same room as us. We met at a small cafe halfway between our lives. I arrived early and chose a seat where the light hit my face. I didn't want to hide. I wanted to be seen clearly. When she walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked smaller. Tired. The confidence she once had was gone. When her eyes found mine, they filled with tears immediately. That used to be my weakness. This time, it wasn't. She rushed into apologies. She said she was confused back then. She said she was overwhelmed. She said she made mistakes. She said she never meant to hurt me. I listened without interrupting. I let her speak until she ran out of excuses and silence took over the table. Then she reached across, trying to take my hand. I pulled back. That moment said more than any words I could have used. She asked if she could be part of my life again. She said she wanted to start over. She said I was all she had left. I took a deep breath and finally spoke. I told her I spent years believing I wasn't enough. I told her I questioned my worth because the one person who was supposed to protect me chose someone else without hesitation. I told her I rebuilt myself from nothing, alone, because I had no other choice. Her face broke as I spoke. But I didn't stop. I said, "You taught me how to survive without you. You taught me that love can be conditional. And because of that lesson, I became someone who doesn't beg for a place anymore." She cried harder then. She said she would do anything to fix it. That's when I told her the truth she wasn't ready for. I said, "I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't mean access." She looked confused, like she had expected punishment or anger instead. She didn't understand that the strongest thing I could do was refuse to reopen a wound that had already healed. I told her I had a life now. A stable one. A peaceful one. And I wouldn't risk that peace to comfort her guilt. I stood up and placed money on the table for my coffee. As I walked away, she called my name. Her voice cracked the same way mine once had. I didn't turn around. Outside, the air felt lighter. My chest felt calm. There was no rush of adrenaline, no dramatic victory. Just a deep, quiet certainty. That was my revenge. Not ruining her life. Not yelling. Not making her suffer. My revenge was becoming someone who no longer needed her love to survive. I erased the version of myself she abandoned. And I walked forward without looking back.